Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Today I will present question 1 which is about inflation and rising fuel price. Inflation is the general increase in the price of goods and service over time. When inflation occurs, the purchasing power of money decreases because consumer can buy fewer goods with the same amount of money. There are two main type of inflation. The first is demandful inflation, which is happen when demand is greater than supply. The second is cost push inflation, which is occurs when production costs increase and business raise price. Rising fuel price contribute to inflation because fuel is an important cost for input transportation and business operation. When fuel price increase, transportation and production costs also increase. Business then rise the price of goods and service to cover this cost. As a result, the overall price level increase, leading to a higher inflation in Malaysia. Thank you. That's all from me.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Okay, so thank you Asfa for presenting question 1. So today I will present question 2 regarding the role of government subsidy such as Moody 95 program in controlling inflation despite rising fuel prices. So let's go to answering our question. So what is subsidy? Definition of subsidy is: subsidy is financial assistance provided by the government to reduce the cost of goods and services for consumer or business. The purpose of subsidy is to reduce the burden of rising prices, help low-income groups, control inflation, and stabilize the economy. So, in Malaysia, subsidies are commonly provided for fuel, cooking oil, electricity, and public transportation. So let's go to our question 2 of the 2. Discuss the role of government subsidies such as Budi 95 program in moderating inflation despite rising fuel prices. So, uh, government subsidy play an important role in reducing the impact of inflation and on consumer and business, especially during periods of rising fuel prices. One example is Malaysia Budi 95 program introduced to help targeted groups manage to the, the increasing cost of fuel. So, for the example is number 1, reduce the cost of living. The Budi 95 program helps consumer by providing financial assistance and fuel subsidy when fuel prices increase. Transportation costs also increase. Without subsidy, food prices become higher, transportation fares increase, and daily expense rise rapidly. Through the subsidy program, the government help reduce the financial burden on households, especially low-income groups, which we usually say B40. So, for example, a family using motorcycle or cars for work can still afford fuel because part of the fuel cost is supported by the government. So let's go to number 2, which is controlling inflation. Fuel prices affect almost every sector in the economy because transportation is necessary for delivering goods and service. And when fuel cost rises, factory face higher production costs. Business pay more for logistics and seller increase product prices. Subsidy help business reduce operating costs, preventing excessive price. In result, inflation can be moderated and controlled. Let's go to number 3. Helping small business. Small and medium enterprise, or the short form is SMEs are highly affected by rising fuel prices because they usually have limited capital. Government subsidy help business by lower transportation expense, maintain product prices, and continue operation during inflation. So for the example is food delivery business, farmers and small retailers benefit from fuel subsidy because transportation costs remain manageable. Now for our last one is supporting economic stability. Subsidy programs such as Budi 95 also help maintain economic stability by protecting consumer purchasing power. When people can still afford basic necessities, consumer spending continues, constant business continue earning revenue, and economic activity remain active. This help prevent severe economic slowdown during inflation periods. Now, for our current economic issue example is in 2026, global fuel prices increased due to international market uncertainty and supply disruption. Malaysia experienced moderate inflation because the government introduced targeted subsidy like Budi 95 to help reduce the impact on consumer and business. And so, without the subsidy, inflation rate could have increased much higher, especially in transportation and food sector. So my conclusion for question 2 is subsidy are financial assistance provided by the government to reduce the cost of goods and services. Programs such as Budi 95 help reduce the burden of rising fuel prices by supporting consumer and business. Subsidy also help control inflation, protect purchasing power, and maintain economic stability in Malaysia. So, that's all I get to present for question 2. Now I will pass to Emil.
Thank you, Aiman, for the nice presentation. So I will answer question number three. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Mohamad Emil Hafriz, bin Jamri, and my ID number is SIT25020036. Question A. Define supply chain. A supply chain is the network of activities involved in producing and delivering a product or service, starting from raw materials, manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and finally to the customer. Now, let's jump into the second question. Effect of rising fuel prices without subsidies, and how does it affect supply chains and business costs in Malaysia? If fuel prices continue to rise without subsidies, transportation and logistics costs will increase throughout the supply chain. This means business need to spend more on delivering raw materials and finished products. For infant or new business, the impact is more serious because they usually have limited capital and lower profit margins. Higher fuel costs can increase operating expenses, forcing them to raise product prices or reduce profits. During inflation, consumers are already facing a higher cost of living, so demand may decrease when prices increase. For example, food delivery business, online sellers, and small retailers in Malaysia may have to pay more for transportation and shipping. As a result, they may charge higher prices to customers, make it harder to compete with larger companies that have more financial resources. So we can conclude that rising fuel prices without subsidies can increase supply chain costs, contribute to inflation, and create significant challenges for new business in Malaysia. That's all from me. I will pass it to Hakim for the next questions.
Thank you, Emil, for the question 3. Now I will continue to the last question, question 4. Before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Mohamad Hakim Hadif bin FAThul Hanif. ID number SIT 250200040. So, question 4. A. Define purchasing power and consumer price index (CPI). Purchasing power refer to the quantity of goods and service that can be bought with a certain amount of money. When price increase due to inflation, purchasing power decrease because consumer can buy fewer goods with the same income. Consumer Price Index (CPI) measure the average change in price of goods and services purchased by household over time. It is commonly used to measure inflation and change in the cost of living. Question B. Impact if fresh food price did not decrease. The article states that inflation was moderately, partly due to lower fresh food price. If fresh food price had not decreased, Malaysian inflation rate would likely have been higher, especially for B40 household. 1. Higher inflation rate. Food is a major component of the CPI basket. If price of vegetable, fish, chicken, and fruit continue to rise, the CPI would increase and contribute to higher inflation. Number 2. Lower purchasing power of B40 household. B40 households spend a large portion of their income on foods and basic necessities. Higher food price would reduce their purchasing power as they would have less money available for other expenses such as transportation, education, and healthcare. Number 3. Higher cost of living. As food is a basic necessity, household cannot avoid purchasing it. Rising food price would increase living costs and create greater financial pressure, particularly for low-income families. 4. Risk of food insecurity. This will reduce purchasing power, increase the cost of living, and place a heavier financial burden on B40 household. Therefore, stable food prices are important in controlling inflation and protecting household welfare. That's all from us. Thank you.